Welcome to Swai Files. I am Swai. The phantom lure is a term passed down through folklore to explain the disappearance of people who go missing in forests, or worse, vanish without a trace. These individuals are believed to be led deep into the woods by some kind of spiritual force, never to return. They disappear as though they never existed, leaving only faint traces behind, or worse, are found dead, cold in the gloomy forests. Those lucky enough to escape the grasp of the phantom lure remember nothing of where they went or what they experienced, as if their memories were stolen. But for many others, an eerie silence prevails, leaving no clues as to where they once existed. These disappearances not only instill fear among the people, but also become a terrifying obsession. Could there be some supernatural force lurking, waiting to devour anyone who steps into its domain? David Paulides, a former American police officer, did not believe in ghostly legends. Yet, these disappearances drove him to investigate. Hundreds of cases, ranging from experienced adventurers to carefree children, seemed to be pulled into a dark force no one could explain. From these investigations, the concept of Missing 411 was born, referring to unsolved disappearances in the deep wilderness. These cases are not just isolated incidents, but appear to weave a web of mystery that envelops the wild nature of the United States. Could an invisible force be manipulating these unfortunate souls, leading them to places no one can find? The deeper Paulides delves into these cases, the more chilling the questions become. Why do individuals with high survival skills and full equipment vanish without a trace? Is there something hidden in the shadows of these desolate forests? Lake Michigan, where a ship with a full crew disappeared in the 17th century, the vanishing of a football team in 1921, and countless other incidents. It's as if they were pulled deep into the lake by some force, never to return. Some believe these were not mere accidents. Could it be that aliens have intervened, appearing in these places to abduct victims, only to erase all traces? David Paulides has not given up. He follows the faint clues, the frantic stories of those lucky enough to survive, people who seem to have been dragged into another world and escaped without understanding what they had gone through. But for others, the mysteries remain in the dark. So what is really happening? Who or what controls the fates of these unfortunate individuals? And will we ever find the answers? Or is this just the beginning of an endless mystery? Lake Michigan, one of the largest freshwater lakes in the world, is not only famous for its majestic natural beauty, but also for the dark mysteries it holds. Mysterious disappearances that have spanned centuries. Locals call this area the Michigan Triangle, a chilling counterpart to the infamous Bermuda Triangle. But instead of massive ships or planes, the victims of the Michigan Triangle are innocent adventurers, vanishing without a trace in the middle of real life. What is truly happening beneath the still surface of the lake? The answer remains elusive, like a ghost hovering between reality and illusion. The stories of the Michigan Triangle date back to the 17th century, when the ship Le Griffon set sail across the lake. It was a cold morning, with winds sweeping across the water, and it seemed as though even nature itself conspired to stay silent. The ship, along with its crew, vanished entirely. No trace, no floating debris. Only rumors persisted, whispering that the ship had been swallowed by a fierce storm, but no one ever saw any sign of disaster. As time passed, the disappearance of Le Griffon faded into obscurity, only mentioned in fleeting tales. But Lake Michigan seemed to never stop claiming its victims. In 1921, a football team of 11 members disappeared without a trace while rowing across the lake. On a seemingly ordinary morning, they set out on the lake, laughter echoing across the water. But by the afternoon, only the boat remained, drifting empty like an endless mystery. No trace of them was ever found. The police could only stand on the shore, staring into the void, where the secrets of Lake Michigan seemed to lie deep beneath its dark waters. Strange phenomena began to spread among fishermen and residents living around the lake. They recounted that on clear days, the sun would suddenly be obscured by dark clouds, and the sky would immediately darken. Small tornadoes would appear unexpectedly on the lake's surface, and within these whirlwinds, strange lights flickered, as if a portal to another world was opening before their eyes. Some claimed to have seen objects floating in the sky, with lights that did not belong to the human world. But among all the strange disappearances, the story of Stephen Kaki remains one of the most haunting and puzzling cases. Stephen Kaki, 23 years old, was a senior student about to graduate from college. He was extremely intelligent, optimistic, energetic, and loved freedom. He was a top student with a stable life and a bright future ahead after graduation. He was also an adventurer, with experience in mountain climbing during his time studying in Europe, giving him strong survival skills in the wilderness. Friends trusted he would never get lost in the forest, but Lake Michigan chose him as its next victim. In February 1978, Stephen and a group of friends went skiing and hiking near Lake Michigan. Everything went smoothly for the first few days. But suddenly, on a cold morning, Stephen disappeared. No one knew where he had gone. When his friends realized he hadn't returned to camp, panic set in, and they alerted the police. The search for the missing young man began immediately. Initially, his disappearance did not attract much attention, but soon, the supernatural community made his case a focal point. The reason his story sparked such interest was because the location of his disappearance was in the southwest, near what was called the Michigan Triangle. Theories began to emerge. Had he been abducted by aliens? Or had he fallen into a time rift where all the laws of physics were bent? No one knew exactly what had happened, but everyone felt that this was no ordinary disappearance. Not long after the disappearance, on February 21st, a group of skiers discovered a strange sight. They found a pair of skis and a backpack abandoned in the snow, with tracks leading from Augustine, a road in Sault Ste. Marie, directly toward Lake Michigan. However, the tracks abruptly stopped near the shore. When the police arrived at the scene, they were shocked by what they saw. Two skis were neatly placed next to each other, about 20 centimeters apart, pointing toward the lake. The ski poles lay beside them, and the backpack was carefully placed on the skis. All the items were arranged so meticulously and neatly that it seemed unbelievable, as if someone had deliberately set them up. These clues led detectives to speculate that if these were the only traces of Stephen Kaki, it was highly likely he had drowned. They immediately contacted local authorities, and a large-scale investigation was launched to search for him. However, the investigation quickly hit a dead end when the sparse clues yielded no progress for the police. Over time, the story of Stephen Kaki began to fade, lingering only in the painful memories of his family. They were forced to accept that the police had stopped searching after months of finding no new clues or leads. Yet, the story did not truly end. A year later, Stephen's family received a shocking surprise. On a May morning in 1979, the doorbell at Stephen's house rang. His father opened the door and was stunned to see his son standing there, gaunt, exhausted, but very much alive. As Stephen recounted his story, everyone quickly realized something was missing. His tale had no middle, leaving a huge gap with no explanation. Stephen could not remember how he had reached the end of his story. In an interview, he shared that he wasn't fully aware of the passage of time until he bought a newspaper and saw the date. From there, he found his way to his aunt's house in Great Barrington, 20 miles from Pittsfield, and was able to reunite with his family after his miraculous return. Stephen recalled that when he woke up, he found himself wearing strange clothes, and his backpack was filled with gear for long hikes, along with numerous maps. According to the maps, it seemed he had traveled through Sacramento, San Francisco, Reno, Chicago, and Utah. He also had $40 in cash, a new pair of glasses, new shoes, and a shirt from a marathon in Wisconsin. Stephen shared that he felt as if he had run a great deal, and that was his last memory before vanishing, a memory full of fear while lost in the wilderness. After his return, Stephen chose to only undergo a physical health check, but refused to meet with a psychiatrist. Stephen insisted that his mental state was as sound as it had been before the ski trip, a puzzling decision indeed. How could a person disappear so mysteriously? And how could they reappear after a year? Over 1,000 kilometers away from where they vanished, with no recollection of anything? Yet this was nothing compared to what journalist Alan discovered. Through this case, Alan Killen, a field reporter who had been following Stephen's story since the beginning, gathered information on the strange points of the case. The first detail that caught people's attention was the possibility that an external factor influenced the disappearance. Local police in Holland had not received any reports of Stephen's disappearance, and the school where he studied showed no reaction either. A noteworthy detail in the police report was that they had found Stephen's driver's license and ID card. However, when Alan investigated further, what they had actually found was a dental receipt. Although the police interviewed many of Stephen's classmates and roommates, nothing they gathered helped the investigation. Another detail emerged the day before the police found Stephen's skis. A couple reported seeing a young man at the location where the skis were found. The man was climbing ice blocks near the shore, and strangely enough, his appearance matched Stephen Kaki's description. However, the odd thing was that he was not alone. Beside him was a petite, beautiful girl, seemingly taking pictures with him. The couple shared this detail, but it didn't aid the investigation. When the police asked about the girl, none of Stephen's friends could recall anyone like that. They insisted that Stephen only had a girlfriend abroad and no relationship in the country. In the first week of March 1978, Stephen's mother called the police, saying that a family friend had received an anonymous call about Stephen's whereabouts. Although the police tried to trace the call, they couldn't determine anything. On another occasion, Stephen's family received a call saying they could find him through a specific phone number. But when they called it, the number had been disconnected. Later, when Stephen's mother checked her phone bill, she found a call to her son made around September 1977, but she couldn't remember where the call came from. The police confirmed that the number held no value in the investigation. Although they received help from Michigan Bell, for various reasons, they could not trace the owner of that phone number. Currently, Stephen is still alive, but remains very private with the press. Little is known about him. However, he found a passion for mathematics and God, writing a book titled Meta-Mathematical Foundations of Existence, God of Quantum, God and Beyond. As for the mysterious disappearance, Stephen has shared nothing further. Alan Killen, who closely followed the case, even set up a blog to update information. But after being repeatedly refused interviews by Stephen and his aunt, Alan was forced to abandon the investigation. The story grew even sadder when Alan passed away at the end of March 2022. And thus, the story of Stephen Kaki, a man who mysteriously disappeared and then reappeared more than a year later, ended in mystery with no answers. Until Stephen is willing to reveal more about the gap in his life, this is all we may ever know about the case. The Michigan Triangle continues to guard its secrets, allowing no one to come close to the truth. People like Stephen return from the void, carrying only fragmented memories and unanswered questions. Is there perhaps an invisible door between reality and another world, opening when someone accidentally steps into it? And if so, how many more will be drawn into it, never to return? Next is an unsolved massacre. The brutal murder of the Cordon family in the wilderness of Oregon. Richard Cordon, a 28-year-old truck driver, lived with his 22-year-old wife, Belinda, and their 2 children, 5-year-old Jack and 5-month-old Melissa. In the U.S., Labor Day is celebrated on the first Monday of September to honor the labor movement and the important contributions of workers to the nation's development. In 1974, on this occasion, Richard Cordon planned to buy gravel to fix the driveway at his home. However, his truck unexpectedly broke down, forcing a change of plans. Instead of wasting a beautiful holiday, Richard came up with another idea. With perfect weather, he decided to take his family camping by Carberry Creek, near Squaw Mountain in the Siskiyou National Forest of Oregon. Richard and his wife loved camping and frequently took their young children on trips into the wilderness. Their survival skills and ability to read signs in the forest amazed many, especially given the mysterious disappearance that would soon leave the police questioning what happened during that fateful time. This camping trip, however, was not a lucky day for them. It was their day of destiny. On August 30th, 1974, the Cordon family planned a camping trip, bringing along their hunting dog, Dry, a basset hound. Richard drove his 1956 Ford pickup truck and parked it along Carberry Creek Road. Everything seemed normal until strange events began to unfold. On the morning of September 1st, around 9 a.m., Richard and his son, along with the dog Dry, went to a general store in the town of Cooper to buy some supplies, then returned to the campsite. After their camping trip, they planned to visit and have dinner with Belinda's mother, Ruth Grayson, who lived just 1.6 kilometers from the campsite. However, Ruth waited endlessly, receiving no message that they wouldn't arrive. Sensing something was wrong, Ruth went straight to the campsite to search for them. When she arrived, she found the campsite deserted, but all the family's personal belongings were still there. The truck keys were on the outdoor table, Belinda's purse and a half-empty milk carton that Richard had just bought were left behind, along with Richard's wallet and watch on the ground. The truck was still parked, indicating that the family had not left or couldn't leave. There were no clear signs except for the eerie disappearance of the Cordon family. Ruth searched the area, but after an hour of fruitless effort, she reported the situation to the police. The sheriff's force, state patrol, and Oregon State Police arrived on the scene quickly. They split up to search for any trace of the Cordon family. But by nightfall, they had to halt the search as darkness made it impossible to see. The next day, a miraculous event occurred. Early in the morning of September 1st, the family's hunting dog, Dry, unexpectedly showed up at the Cooper General Store, the same store Richard and his son had visited to buy camping supplies. Dry was scratching at the door as if seeking help, but disturbingly, the dog was alone, with no sign of the Cordon family. This raised concerns that the family may not have survived. Authorities officially classified the case as a disappearance and began searching 24 hours after the report, as with all missing persons cases. The U.S. Forest Service, the Oregon National Guard, and hundreds of volunteers immediately organized large-scale searches. They scoured the areas surrounding the campsite, even expanding the search up to 25 miles, including nearby trails. Helicopters and modern equipment were deployed to find any trace. However, despite all efforts, no new clues were discovered. Not even the smallest signs appeared. Investigators began reviewing the family's background to see if the disappearance could have been planned, but this theory was quickly dismissed. The Cordon family had a clean record, no debts, and Richard was financially stable. There were no indications they had disappeared for economic reasons. Thus, police began exploring other theories, such as robbery, kidnapping, or a violent altercation. However, these theories were also unconvincing, as there were no signs of struggle or disturbance at the scene. What had happened to the Cordon family? This question puzzled investigators, especially as letters requesting the FBI's involvement were repeatedly sent but denied. By September 10th, after days of fruitless searching, authorities and volunteers were forced to call off the search. However, the Cordon family's friends and relatives did not give up. They spent weekends and even took time off work to continue searching, but ultimately, no trace of the family was found. The Cordon family's disappearance ended in mystery, with no answers. After weeks of failed searches, ghost stories began to circulate in the local community. Locals spoke of strange occurrences in the forest dating back decades, unseen whispers in the night, dark shadows slipping through the trees, and unsolved disappearances. They called it the phantom lure, a supernatural force leading people into eternal darkness, never to return. The story took a more chilling turn in October 1974, nearly 3 months after the Cordon family vanished. Their bodies were discovered. An explorer happened upon a site more than 20 miles from the original campsite and found their remains scattered in the forest. The scene that greeted investigators was horrifying. In January 1975, Leroy's parole was revoked and he was returned to prison. However, in 1977, he was paroled again. He soon reoffended, sexually assaulting and beating a 23-year-old pregnant woman named Margie Hunter. Leroy was convicted and sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences. He never cooperated with mental health treatment and refused to answer any questions related to the murders he was accused of. One factor that made Leroy the prime suspect in the Cordon family case was that police believed the 2 men and woman seen in the pickup truck could have been Leroy and his parents. The description of the truck matched the one used by Leroy's family. However, Leroy and his parents denied all accusations, insisting they were not at the campsite that day. Nonetheless, a miner nearby testified that Leroy and his parents had passed through the area on Monday, September 9th, 1974. The evidence he provided was Leroy's signature in the guest book for visitors. Another piece of evidence against Leroy was that Floyd Forberg, a prisoner who had shared a cell with Leroy, revealed that he had confessed to killing the Cordon family. Investigators still lacked concrete evidence to charge Leroy in connection with the Cordon family's case. The Cordon family case remains shrouded in mystery. Although suspicions toward Leroy grew stronger, police could not find concrete evidence to charge him. The clues were too faint, and no eyewitnesses had seen him at the crime scene. But Leroy was not the only suspect. There were stranger, more mysterious theories. Some believed the Cordon family had been drawn into a dark ritual or taken by a supernatural force. Stories of spirits in the Oregon woods began to appear in local newspapers. It was rumored that in the dark of night, the ghosts of the Cordon family still roamed the woods, seeking the salvation they would never receive. Leroy, though never convicted, mysteriously disappeared shortly after his release. Police could not trace his whereabouts. Some say he fled to another state, but the stranger rumors suggest he met the same fate as the Cordon family, swallowed by the darkness of the forest where he once spread fear. The Oregon forest has since become a symbol of danger and death, where locals remind each other that not everything that exists in the darkness can be explained. And the story of the Cordon family remains an unsolved mystery, buried deep within the gloomy woods, leaving an everlasting haunting for all who hear it. On June 13, 1969, the Martin family embarked on their annual Father's Day camping trip to Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Dennis Martin, just 6 years old, was particularly excited as this was his first time joining. The family set off from Knoxville, spent the night at Russell Field, and continued their journey to Spencefield the following morning. Little did they know, this trip would become a mystery that would forever haunt anyone who heard about it. Along the way, the Martin family met Dr. Carter's family. The two families decided to travel together, creating a lively atmosphere filled with the laughter of children. Dennis and the other children decided to play hide-and-seek in the woods, a game that seemed harmless. To avoid being spotted, Dennis was assigned to hide in a bush further away, as his bright red shirt made him more noticeable. While the other children jumped out to scare the adults, Dennis never appeared. Dennis's father, Bill Martin, grew worried when minutes passed and his son still hadn't returned. He went to where Dennis had hidden, but the boy had mysteriously disappeared. Worry quickly turned into panic as the family couldn't find any trace of Dennis, not even a responding call. Bill ran along the Appalachian Trail, calling out his son's name, but there was no reply. The search began immediately. Dennis's grandfather ran to the nearest ranger station, 14 kilometers away, to report the disappearance, but a severe storm suddenly hit that night, halting all search efforts. Dennis had only thin clothes and shoes, with nothing to protect him from the bone-chilling cold. Everyone could only pray that he had found shelter, safe from the lurking dangers of the night, especially the predators of the forest. The search continued for 16 days, involving over 1,400 volunteers, the National Guard, federal troops, and even the FBI. Helicopters, search dogs, and an array of modern equipment were deployed, but no trace of Dennis was ever found. The relentless rain and bad weather erased any possible clues. Every effort led to a dead end, leaving a shroud of mystery over the disappearance. The strangeness of the case didn't end with Dennis's disappearance. A witness, railroad engineer Harold Key, reported hearing a terrifying scream from deep within the woods on the day Dennis disappeared. Investigating further, Harold saw a figure hiding in the brush, disheveled and with an odd appearance. Initially, Harold and his son thought it was a bear, but they soon realized it was a man. However, when authorities investigated, they determined that Harold's location was too far from where Dennis had vanished, dismissing any connection. The sighting of this mysterious man sparked numerous other theories. Some speculated that Dennis might have been kidnapped by outlaws living in the forest. Darker theories emerged, suggesting that the boy could have fallen into the hands of malevolent individuals or even a mysterious group performing strange rituals deep in the woods. Although all of these were just conjectures, they only added to the eerie and mysterious nature of the case. Even after the official search ended, the Martin family's hope never died. Dennis's grandfather returned to the area for years afterward, persistently searching for his grandson in vain. Dennis's father, Bill Martin, passed away in 2014, never knowing what happened to his son. Over 50 years later, the disappearance of Dennis Martin remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. Though decades have passed, the story of the boy swallowed by the deep forest continues to haunt those who hear about it. Theories, faint clues, and unanswered questions only make this case more enigmatic. And to this day, it remains a chilling mystery within Great Smoky Mountains National Park. However, Dennis Martin's disappearance has never been forgotten. His story has become part of the legend of the Great Smoky Mountains, where the wild beauty of nature also harbors its darkest secrets. Locals still occasionally speak of the disappearance, and many avoid the area where Dennis vanished, as though it is cursed. Was Dennis abducted by that mysterious stranger? Or did he wander into another dimension, a place beyond human reach? The questions remain, hovering like the darkness hidden within the leaves of the Great Smoky Mountains. And every time the wind blows through the gloomy woods, people claim to hear the faint whisper of a little boy, lost forever in the heart of the deep forest. In August 2010, under the gentle summer sun, John Dee's family decided to go camping near Mount Shasta, a famous volcanic mountain known for its majestic beauty and mysterious lore. This wasn't their first time visiting. John's grandmother, a nature lover, had brought the family to the mountain many times before, and each trip had been filled with cherished memories. But this time, amid the peaceful atmosphere of the wilderness, a terrifying event occurred, leaving an enduring sense of dread, not only for the family but for everyone who heard the strange tale of John D. John D., a 3.5-year-old boy, joined his family on a delightful camping trip near Mount Shasta on October 1st, 2010. It was a popular camping spot, favored by many due to its proximity to a lake, perfect for fishing. Everything started as a normal trip, but no one expected this camping adventure to turn into a nightmare for John's family. Around 6 p.m., young John was playing near the campsite under his parents' watchful eyes. However, just a few moments of inattention led to a shocking discovery. John had disappeared. Initially, his parents thought he had wandered a bit farther, but was still within sight. But after searching the area repeatedly without finding any trace of John, panic began to set in. The child did not respond to his parents' calls, and the situation quickly grew more dire. In desperation, John's parents alerted other members of the group and sought help from local law enforcement and the U.S. Forest Service. Rangers, police officers, and volunteers joined the search, combing every corner of the campsite, from familiar trails to dense thickets. Yet, it seemed John had vanished mysteriously. His disappearance cast a heavy tension over the area, and as night fell, eerie stories about Mount Shasta resurfaced. According to Native American legends, Mount Shasta is no ordinary mountain. They believe it is home to supernatural forces, beings from another world who watch over intruders. The story of John's disappearance seemed to bring these ancient legends back to life. The search continued for hours, but just as despair began to creep into the minds of the searchers, John was found. At 12:30 a.m., a sheriff stumbled upon the boy hiding in a bush not far from the campsite, in a semi-conscious state. He was discovered less than 2 miles from the camp, quietly sitting under a large tree. Though slightly tired and covered in dirt, John was unharmed. It was a miracle, but what John recounted after being found truly sent chills down everyone's spines. 3 weeks after John was found, during a visit to his grandmother Kathy, the boy suddenly turned to her with a worried face and said, "I don't like the other Kathy." His grandmother, whom John affectionately called Kathy, was puzzled by this. Why was he referring to someone as the other Kathy? Sensing that John had more to share, she gently asked him about what happened while he was missing. John told his grandmother that when he got lost in the forest, a woman who looked exactly like her took his hand and led him into a cave. This woman had the same face, hair, and eyes as his grandmother, but John quickly realized that she wasn't his real grandmother. The cave was dark, cold, and full of spiders, with dust covering the floor and strange machines standing still around them. When the Kathy approached John, he noticed that her face glowed strangely. At that moment, John knew that this was not his grandmother. John felt terrified by this revelation. The woman then led him to a bush near a trail, telling him to stay there until someone found him. The boy stayed in the bush until the police discovered him. What John described left his grandmother deeply unsettled, but at first she dismissed it as a child's vivid imagination, possibly influenced by too much television. However, when Kathy called John's parents to ask about the story, she was even more shocked to learn that this was not the first time John had recounted this. Right after being found, John had shared the same story, but his parents, too stunned and unsure of what to make of it, decided not to press further, hoping their son wouldn't be haunted by it for long. John's account reminded Kathy of a strange event she and her husband had experienced a year earlier. While camping near Mount Shasta, they had seen glowing red eyes watching them from a distance at night. They shone flashlights toward the eyes, but they quickly disappeared. However, the eyes kept appearing in different spots around the campsite until the couple decided to go to bed. The next morning, They woke up outside their tent, feeling fatigued and dizzy, with small bite marks on the back of their necks, similar to spider bites. It took them a long time to recover after that trip, but the incident had haunted Kathy ever since. With John's story and Kathy's experience, one can't help but wonder, could the other Kathy really exist? The strange details, from the woman who looked like his grandmother to the mysterious red eyes, made the tale even more chilling and hard to believe. But was it simply the imagination of a 3-year-old boy, or were there forces at work beyond human comprehension? When asked where he had gone, John told an unbelievable story. He had been led into a secret cave by someone who looked just like his grandmother. She had taken his hand. John's tale quickly spread, leaving not only his family but also the search team in shock. John's grandmother, who had been with him before his disappearance, firmly stated that she had never taken the boy far from the campsite. In fact, she couldn't explain how John could describe a cave she had never seen. People began to ask, who had led John away? And why did that person look like his grandmother? Theories started to emerge, but no one could provide a reasonable explanation. Some believed that John had been taken by a stranger, possibly a survivalist living in the woods, but the idea that this person could look identical to his grandmother was impossible to explain. Others speculated that the story involved extraterrestrial beings. Mount Shasta had long been a focal point for rumors about UFOs and mysterious creatures, and John's story only added to the eerie atmosphere surrounding the area. From then on, the story of John D. and Mount Shasta became part of the mysterious legends of the region. Many people visited to investigate and explore, hoping to find answers to what had happened. But it seemed that each time someone tried to unravel the mystery, they only encountered more faint traces and increasingly strange stories. Could a supernatural force have truly pulled John D. into that hidden cave? Or did Mount Shasta, with its inexplicable phenomena, create a doorway to another world? The mystery remains, lurking beneath the ancient volcanic layers of the mountain, where once again, reality and the unknown intersect in the eerie light of unsolved legends. New York, a cold winter morning in 1910. The city was bustling, full of life, but in the air there was an inexplicable chill, and it wasn't just from the biting wind. Dorothy Arnold, a wealthy and well-known socialite of the upper class, stepped out of her family's luxurious home on 79th Street in the Upper East Side. Dressed in an elegant outfit with a thick coat and a stylish fur hat, she blended into the crowded streets of Fifth Avenue, but no one knew this would be the last time she was seen. That morning, Dorothy told her mother she was going shopping to prepare for an upcoming party. But after that, she vanished, without a trace, without a call, without a letter. As night fell and Dorothy didn't return, her family's worry began to mount. They searched everywhere, calling her name in vain, but silence wrapped around their hopes like a shadow. One thing was clear: Dorothy Arnold had disappeared in the heart of a bustling city, as if she had never existed. The Arnold family quickly launched an urgent search, using every resource available. Dorothy's father, a wealthy and influential businessman, enlisted the police, private detectives, and his high society connections to investigate. But all they found were vague clues. It was known that Dorothy had visited a few shops, spoken to some acquaintances, and then, no more. She had seemingly vanished into thin air amidst the throngs of New York. The search for Dorothy Arnold quickly became one of the biggest missing persons cases of the time, spreading nationwide. Every corner of New York City was scoured, every potential witness was questioned. Everyone awaited results, but all were left in the dark. One of the most shocking theories that emerged shortly after Dorothy's disappearance was that she had run away with a lover. George Griscom, a young engineer, was involved in a complicated romantic relationship with Dorothy. Despite her family's strong disapproval, Dorothy had secretly met George multiple times. Could she have decided to leave everything behind to elope with him, seeking freedom from the constraints of high society? Investigations into this theory led to a surprising truth. On the day Dorothy disappeared, George Griscom was not in New York. He was in Italy. Was this a strange coincidence, or part of a larger plot? Although there was no evidence that Dorothy had met George that day, many still believed she had planned to leave the city and disappear forever. Another, even more disturbing theory surfaced. Dorothy Arnold had been murdered. A witness claimed to have seen Dorothy arguing with a strange man shortly before she vanished. The man had an ominous appearance with cold, threatening eyes. Had Dorothy been lured by this man and then killed? Had he taken her to a secret place, murdered her, and erased all traces? The police thoroughly investigated but found no signs of foul play. There was no body, no blood, no evidence. It was all rumors and vague theories, but they left the public feeling uneasy. Had someone in the shadows of New York preyed on Dorothy's innocence to commit a heinous crime, undetected by anyone? But perhaps the darkest theory was that Dorothy had died during a failed abortion. For New York's upper class, a young woman like Dorothy becoming pregnant out of wedlock was unacceptable. If rumors about her pregnancy were true, she might have sought to conceal it by having a secret abortion, an illegal and dangerous procedure at the time. Some sources claim that Dorothy had gone to a clandestine clinic on the outskirts of New York for the surgery. But something went terribly wrong. She died on the operating table, and to avoid discovery, those involved in the abortion secretly disposed of her body. Her remains might have been buried deep underground, hidden without leaving any trace. This theory sent chills through both her family and the public. However, there was no concrete evidence to confirm what had happened. Still, it cast a dark shadow over Dorothy Arnold's name, turning her story into one of the greatest mysteries in history. As time passed, the Arnold family tried to move on, though the pain and mystery surrounding Dorothy lingered. Yet, a few years after Dorothy's father passed away, strange letters began to appear. These letters, with no sender's name or clear origin, claimed that Dorothy was still alive, that she had fled to start a new life far away. But was that the truth? Or was it a cruel prank, meant to stir up the family's lingering grief? Whatever the truth may be, Dorothy Arnold's fate remains a mystery. The opulent buildings of New York still stand tall, but beneath the city's dim lights, the story of her disappearance lingers like a ghost that will never fade. Did she escape the confines of high society, or did she fall victim to a darker, more sinister plot? Dorothy Arnold's fate, like the hidden corners of New York, remains forever shrouded in darkness. From the chilling disappearance of the Cordon family in the Oregon wilderness, the young Dennis Martin swallowed by darkness in the Great Smoky Mountains, the mysterious tale of John Dee at Mount Shasta, to the vanishing of Dorothy Arnold in the heart of New York, each case leaves a large, unanswered question. Despite large-scale searches, tireless investigations, and the mobilization of countless resources, every clue led to a dead end. The fates of these individuals remain forever shrouded in mystery. Each disappearance opens the door to numerous theories. Perhaps they were guided by a supernatural force into another world, or caught in the web of dark criminal plots yet to be uncovered. Stories like John Dee's even spark speculation about extraterrestrial involvement, as the supernatural elements become increasingly difficult to explain. The fact remains, no matter how many theories are proposed, no one can say for certain what happened to them. These disappearances are not isolated stories. They reflect our helplessness in the face of the unknown. There are places on this earth where the usual laws of nature and science seem to lose their meaning. We stand at the edge of understanding, gazing into the darkness without knowing what lurks within. Ultimately, These disappearances serve as a reminder that our world still holds many mysteries beyond explanation. Will we ever uncover the truth, or will these enigmas remain forever hidden in the shadows? The answer is still waiting, but it may take much more time and effort to piece together the full picture. Until then, these cases will continue to haunt and challenge the human imagination, forcing us to ask, are there truths we have never been brave enough to confront? The darkness surrounding these disappearances lingers, silent, awaiting discovery. But are we truly ready to uncover the final truth? That question remains unanswered, and perhaps it is this uncertainty